Amongst the myriad of gimmicky detective and procedural cop shows, most of them are exactly the same except for one wild card factor, whether it's something as simple as the show's location or the main character's gimmick ability. Even the ongoing story to crime solving ratio can change a show radically. Two shows in particular, Psych, which ran for 8 seasons starting in 2006, and The Mentalist, which ran for 6 seasons starting in 2008, are almost identical in concept, except for a few key differences. The Mentalist is about Patrick Jane, a man who, after being raised by his father as a carny psychic and eventually taking his talents to TV, tries to analyze a serial killer, Red John.
That's right, Red John. He's killed at least 8 women, that we know of. The police asked me to try and get a psychic fix on him to see if I get a sense of who this man is.
Who takes it as an insult and kills his family.
Dear Mr. Jane, I do not like to be slandered in the media, especially by a dirty money-grubbing fraud. If you were a real psychic instead of a dishonest little worm, you wouldn't need to open the door to see what I've done to your lovely wife and child.
Jane reveals he was a fraud and volunteers with the California Bureau of Investigation, which is kinda like the FBI, but they have to keep telling everyone that it's a real thing. Which it is. His only goal, find out who Red John is and kill him for revenge. Psych has almost the same premise. In his childhood, Sean Spencer was trained by his father, a detective with the Santa Barbara, California police, to utilize his photographic memory in an incredible way with logic.
Manager's name.
Who?
She's wearing a name tag. The woman standing at the front door when we first walked in. You saw her.
Marie, can I have the cake now?
20 years later, he's gone through a revolving door of odd jobs and schemes that he can't keep up due to his own lack of interest, but mostly he's just a layabout. As a sort of hobby, he calls in anonymous tips but solves dozens of crimes for the police simply through watching people's behavior on the news.
It's the store manager. He did it. The stereo robberies?
At the Vision's chain store.
He's on Channel 8 News right now.
His hands, nervous tick, dead giveaway. And he won't look at the reporter in the eyes.
My name? My name is Sean Spencer.
Nope, that's gonna do it.
Actually, the tags on the newsman expired, but that's completely unrelated.
And they eventually bring him in for questioning when it turns out the latest one had a partner, and Sean is their prime suspect. In order to give himself an out, he fakes having psychic powers so he doesn't get arrested.
I got the information because I'm psychic. Get him out of here.
One thing leads to another, and he not only gets wrapped into another case, but drafts his best friend since childhood, Gus, into helping him and starting a psychic detective agency.
You and I are opening our own private detective agency.
Oh. See? No explanation necessary.
Let me get my code. But you're not getting your code.
There aren't really any overarching plots, just some barely recurring villains, and it's more about the characters than the plot. The two shows seem suspiciously similar on the surface. A fake psychic is trained by his father who recognizes a talent for keen observation and a photographic memory, and he ends up working for the police as a consultant. And surprisingly, that's where the similarities end, other than the standard genre tropes of "this wasn't a suicide" and "our obvious suspect is dead." The Mentalist is a serious, often very dark show that is focused more on an overarching story than character development, though it's certainly there, usually in flashbacks. Patrick Jane is someone who's been hurt so badly that he's afraid to let anyone else get too close to him. While Sean Spencer is inseparable from Gus, no matter how badly and how often he screws him over and steals his credit card. On the other hand, he still acts like a child, not really taking anything seriously and making things up as he goes along. Patrick Jane is constantly reminded of his wife and child and fueled by vengeance to have a relationship, while Sean is just too immature for a meaningful one. Both are great shows with a mere change of tone that makes them entirely different. Psych gently pokes fun at the Mentalist, and the Mentalist, in turn, doesn't have time for that, only vengeance.
You've seen The Mentalist, right?
Yes.
It's like that.
Except that guy's a fake.
Right. If I was a fake psychic, it would be eerily similar.
Exactly the same.
A virtual carbon copy.
I'll make it up to him this week. I'll head over there for dinner, bring him a pouch of Big League Chew, maybe watch a couple episodes of The Mentalist. Be fine.
Son, I'm not sure what makes either of you think you're Army material.
I have 2 words for you. Army. Psychic. I'm giving you first shot before I pitch it to CBS as a television idea.
I made checking his history to see what his most recent web searches were.
MentalistSpoilers.com, BillyZane.thumbnail/hair.com.
Listen, you asked me, I think your profile needs some sprucing up.
Sprucing up?
Well, yeah. You seem sort of middle of the road. I mean, who lists The Mentalist as one of their favorite TV shows? You need to get more spicy.
Why would you do that? Why would you make fun of The Mentalist?
What? I don't believe
I'm serious. Why would you possibly take a shot at that show?
I've never actually seen it.
Okay.
Well, check it out.
The Mentalist, like most shows of the genre, consists mostly of standalone episodes. However, once or twice per season, and more often as the show goes on, he's faced with either someone with information about Red John, that's the serial killer who murdered his family, remember? Or the man himself, or so he thinks. The overarching plot is a series of red herrings and copycats so detailed it's almost like there's a small cult. Finding the identity of Red John is his primary motivation, and there are some Silence of the Lambs style psychological horror moments amidst those 6 seasons that just increase intensity and quality. While most shows run out of ideas and get cancelled, this clearly had a lot of thought put into it. Bruno Heller previously co-created the HBO series Rome, which paved the way of interest for Game of Thrones.
I am not rising from this bed until I've fucked someone.
Fine, Marilla. Fetch that German slut from the kitchen.
And he would later go on to develop the Fox series Gotham and the bizarrely not in the same continuity series Pennyworth. Psych was created by Steve Franks, who, other than Psych, wrote the Adam Sandler movie Big Daddy and wrote and directed the failed Rush Hour TV series. That transition never works without the original actors, and Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker are a hard duo to reproduce. Franks did, however, have an origin story to use for his most successful show. His father was a cop, and hoping he would follow in his father's footsteps, would test him on things like how many people were wearing hats or the waitress's name tags. Many episodes of Psych start off with flashbacks of Sean being trained in some way that later comes up in the episode, rather than the typical formula of starting from that episode's victim's point of view during the last minute of their life, then a cut to the characters showing up to the crime scene. In fact, a large part of Psych is dedicated to getting in on a case in the first place. While Jane from The Mentalist literally lives at the police station and only takes on cases that relate to the Red John murders or ones that catch his interest, basically ignoring the boring cases, Sean from Psych has bills for Gus to pay, and they basically have to beg for cases, occasionally even going against orders in a selfish sense, not for the sake of the justice one.
It was a suicide. There is no crime. There are no witnesses.
You're wrong. There is a witness. There's a cat. I want to talk to that cat.
Since they're playing psychic, they rarely follow procedure, and the amount of illegally obtained evidence is ridiculous, forcing them to rely on the culprit's confession after a psychic vision plot reveal. While The Mentalist is definitely a drama with the occasional bit of lighthearted humor tossed in,
Did you do that?
Telekinesis.
You blew on it.
That is another way to do it.
Psych is farcical from the first scene and it never lets up.
Felicia Fancy Bottom? What am I, James Bond villain?
Ernesto Agapito Garces Curiel de Avelar? And Juan Priestley.
I'm Sean Spence-Star. This is my partner, Gus, TT Showbiz.
The extra T is for extra talent.
This is Burton, Oil Can Guster.
But I'm Sean Spencer.
I'm the head P for the SBPD.
My name is Sean Spencer. I am the head psychic for the Santa Barbara Police Department, and that is my partner.
Yeah, that's his partner, Methuselah Honeysuckle, which makes me Old Scratch Johnson.
Sean always introduces them under false names for no reason. They get scared of the tiniest things and shriek like small children. Their office is more like a kid's secret fort than a business place, and most plainly of all, the name of their fake psychic detective agency is called Psych.
You named your fake detective agency Psych? Why didn't you just call it, hey, we're fooling you and the police department, hoping we'll make a mistake and someone dies because of it?
First of all, Gus, that name is entirely too long. It would never fit on the window. And secondly, the best way to convince people you're not lying to them is to tell them you are.
I've talked a lot more about Psych than The Mentalist, but believe me, it's not because I like it more or think it's a better show. Funnier, definitely, but it doesn't have a running storyline that I don't want to spoil, like with The Mentalist, and most of what The Mentalist does is pretty standard fare for a procedural police drama. Don't get me wrong, the characters are well written and developed, but take away the main character and it could be any other show. Psych is similar, but since it's a comedy, there's more of a focus on the characters than even the crimes, or even the police station, with the psych office, Sean's dad now retired, and even Gus's real job as a pharmaceutical salesman and often factoring things in. They add much more to the show than otherwise. In the end, I like both shows, and it's hard to say which is better. The Mentalist is probably objectively better with its fancy plots and puzzling characters, but Psych is just fun, which the genre doesn't have much of. I'll call it a draw for myself, but you can decide for yourselves. If you watched either, or preferably both of these shows, leave a comment on which you like and why, and we'll see which one is the favorite. If you like this comparative style of video, leave a like and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.